Okay, let's see if this helps you. Just to remind you about the surpluses. Okay, the producer surplus, the area between the supply curve and the price that the firm receive. So up here, if this is an equilibrium, this is the price the firm receives. This is what they're willing and able to supply at, and so the difference each time they supply is known as their surplus, and the consumer basically the same. They are willing and able to demand up here, that gives them their benefit. They have to pay a price here, and so the difference is the consumer surplus. Okay, what happens with a subsidy, if you remember, is that the subsidy is going to reduce the supply curve. So when the price in the market falls to P, then the consumer is going to demand more. Remember, the consumer was demanding here. Now what's going to happen is they're going to demand more to point A. The firm, however, are going to receive this from the consumer. They're going to receive P1, but they're also going to get a subsidy, which is this difference between the two supply curves. And they're going to eventually receive P2 in the market. So it's an odd one. The consumer pays less, but the firm receives more. Both consumer are going to move along their demand curve, and the producer is going to move along their supply curve to the new equilibrium. So we are now in equilibrium at this high price from the producer, that lower price that the consumer gets. Both the producer and the consumer are going to produce and consume a quantity of Q1, so we're in equilibrium. Hope that makes sense. So, moving on, the firm now are going to get this higher price P2, remember, marketplace, and so their producer surplus, which used to be this area here, there's the old supply curve, there's the price they used to receive, that is now going to appear, and they're going to get a bigger surplus, and a bigger surplus by this amount here. So P2, P0, E0 and B. From the consumer's point of view, at the old equilibrium price, that was their surplus. That is, and instead now, because they are receiving a lower price, they get a bigger surplus, and the bigger surplus is by this amount here in the market. So I know it's odd, but the producer gets a bigger surplus and the consumer get a bigger surplus, and so that's a measure of welfare. So this is the supply with a tax. When you put a tax on a good, then the firm, which were willing and able to supply at this point, now have to get this higher price because they pay this much over to the government in the form of the tax. And so the old equilibrium price was here. However, the new equilibrium is now here because the supply curve has shifted up. The consumer pays a higher price in the market, but the firm receives that and gives this much over to the government, so therefore they end up only receiving P2. So what happens is the old consumer surplus, which was this shape here, gets replaced by the green triangle. So the consumer surplus has gone down, and it goes down by this shape here. On the other hand, and the producer surplus, which was this amount there at this old price, now disappears, and they get a smaller surplus. They have lost a surplus which is equivalent to this shape here. So both the consumer lose this bit there of a surplus, and the firm lose that part there. So I hope that's clear. If not, give me an email and I'll explain it to you again. Okay?